So, Nick, UFC London is shaping out to be an awesome card. We're going to have the return of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, his second fight inside of the UFC's octagon. He's going to be taking on Kazula Vargas, stepping in for Jared Gordon, who is now out of the fight, apparently. You know, Kazula's an older guy, 36 years old, 1-2 in the UFC, a little bit of a late start coming into the UFC.
Right.
And this feels like they're trying to do the same thing with Paddy that they're doing with Sean O'Malley and some of the other prospects that they believe can be big draws, which is to let them have a slow build.
Yeah, and we always talk about it on this channel. The build is the most fun to watch as a fan. The rise of a fighter is what we enjoy watching the most. And Paddy the Baddy definitely has that it factor. He's got the haircut, and whether it's in style or out of style, it's his style, and people are starting to enjoy his presence anytime the camera pans over to him at a UFC event or anything like that. You had to know he was going to be fighting on this UK card. The return to London for them, or wherever they're fighting in the UK.
London. Yeah.
Is it in London? They can't miss when they throw Paddy the Baddy on there now, and he seems to be one of those guys that they want to take as the premier face. You know, the Michael Bisping and the Darren Till. He kind of fell a little bit short, but Paddy the Baddy seems like the next big face out of the UK for them, and I think he's able to carry that torch well. The only thing about this fight that I'm a little bit bummed about is Cowboy Cerrone wanted this fight bad.
Yeah.
And anything under Cowboy Cerrone that they would have signed, which, no offense to his opponent, Kazula, I'm guessing you said that right. Kazula. It just felt like a little bit of a fail.
Yeah.
Like, Cowboy Cerrone wants this fight. Fight Cowboy Cerrone. We want to see Paddy the Baddy in there, and he's already in one fight big enough to fight a guy with all the records in the UFC, an absolute living legend that the world and the sport know and love. To go from fighting Cowboy Cerrone to fighting an unknown, and I'm a fan of this sport. I know it well. I don't know Kazula. It felt like it fell flat a little bit, but the show's all about Paddy the Baddy, and maybe he'll get Cowboy in the next go.
Yeah, you know, I had heard of Kazula Vargas, but I had to look up his record and how old he was and things like that, which is something I typically don't have to do for a video, which kind of speaks to the level of notoriety that he has. And as you said, when Cowboy Cerrone is being discussed, and even when we hear that Cowboy Cerrone is asking for that fight, and the precedent's already been set, right? He already went to London once and fought Darren Till in the main event. So he obviously is willing to go to enemy territory to put on a show. Everybody around. Honestly, there is no enemy territory for Cowboy Cerrone.
Right.
He's an American, but they love him everywhere. Everybody is a fan of Cowboy Cerrone. So I would have liked to have seen that fight. But I think the UFC did the right bit of matchmaking. If it's not going to be Cerrone, make it a guy that's going to give Paddy the Baddy a good fight, a tough guy, a guy that's hard to finish. He actually has 7 knockouts to his name. The majority of his wins come by knockouts, do Vargas's. So, he'll be a threat in the beginning, and it'll probably be a little bit like Paddy's last fight where there may be a little bit of a storm in the beginning. But I love that he's not headlining this event, and it's like, it's kind of that moment, when Conor fought in Ireland. You want to see how does Paddy do in his home country, and we can only imagine that the crowd is going to roar when the Heads Will Roll song comes on the speakers and he comes out. But I'm glad he's not the headliner. I think Tom Aspinall versus Volkov is the right headliner. Tom Aspinall's a little more seasoned in his career. He's a little bit closer to being a real title challenger, and I think he's a little bit more mature to handle that position and let Paddy come out. Maybe he's the co-main. Maybe he's the opening on the main card. Who knows where the placement will be? I haven't seen that yet, but I'm sure it'll be a good placement, and I think he's going to put on a show. I think he's going to get a finish, and I think we're all going to see just how big of a star in the UK he actually is.
Yeah, and if London's back open and they're going to have fights all the time, look for him to be able to fight over there across the pond almost every time he fights. You know, I'm sure he'll get over to Vegas and do pay-per-views when he becomes that kind of a draw. But this is a perfect position for him to be in. If the people in London want to see him fight and the people in the UK support him, let him grow. And it's always fun to have a couple of feature matches on a main card. And if the big name, boxing is guilty of this all the time, they put the only names we know as the main event.
Yeah.
And if you were to take a couple of people that might not have the crazy record, might not have all the belts, all the glory, but they're bigger names, throw those people onto a great fight with a feature fight at the top of the bill. That can help bring more eyes and more attention to the card. The UFC does that really well. I think Volkov and Aspinall have done a ton of heavy lifting between the two of them, and they fought between the two of them, a lot of really
very tough people.
Yeah, high-level names, top 5, top 3, top 2 guys in the heavyweight division. It just makes more sense for them to be the headline than Paddy the Baddy. But to have a guy like Sean O'Malley comes to mind when I think about putting Paddy on a main card. Sean's not the headliner. He's not the co-main. He's not any of that, but he's opening up these main cards every time Connor's on or anytime there's a big fight happening. Sean O'Malley's on that main card, and it helps add just like it makes the entire fight night feel like more substantial.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this fight does come a couple of weeks before that big Masvidal-Covington pay-per-view that's going to be massive. But I hope that it's not overshadowed by that, because this UFC London card is shaping out to be an awesome fight. And I'm a big Tom Aspinall fan. If you guys out there have been listening for a while, you know that Tom Aspinall, I believe when the UK has its next champion, it will be Tom Aspinall. I think he's very skilled. He's the right age for heavyweight. He's got a lot of upside. There's a lot of time for him to improve in his skills. And I think that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with at heavyweight for quite some time. And the UFC clearly believes so as well. They're basically forming a card around him in London, and they're giving him Alexander Volkov. So if they don't think he's the real deal, they aren't putting Volkov in there with him.
Yeah, and we were talking about the co-main. I believe it'll end up being Dan Hooker.
That's right.
Brendan Allen, or is it Arnold Allen?
Arnold Allen, yeah.
Arnold Allen, great fight. I think, and that would have actually coincided really well with Cowboy Cerrone being Paddy's matchup, because Dan Hooker and Cowboy Cerrone are 2 certified badasses. Yeah. They're in the running for the BMF forevermore. Like, they will always be considered BMFs, or at least contenders for that title, because they're willing to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. And Cowboy Cerrone probably would have been a pretty heavy underdog against Paddy the Baddy, I would assume. Yeah. And it would have been cool to see him out there, because I feel like he would have been almost doing Paddy a favor. Yeah. If Paddy's able to beat him, which if I'm predicting that fight right now, I think Paddy likely gets the job done and gets it done in a pretty impressive fashion. That could shoot him up right up there with that Khamzat Chimaev, Sugar Sean style level of prospect. And he's already right on the cusp of being with those guys, but a win over Cowboy Cerrone would have done numbers for him. I think the slow burn is best for Paddy the Baddy, and if you're going to give him guys, give him people like this, the tough guys that are going to make him work for his win, but ultimately he will likely figure out the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, and Pimblett is a 2-1 favorite in this one, and I think that's probably about right.
That's fair.
Guys, thanks for watching this video. Please let us know in the comments, do you like this matchup for Paddy the Baddy? And who do you think is going to win the fight? As always, we appreciate a subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Have a great day.
Peace.